Hi, we're back. Thank you all for joining us for the continuation of the KT Center's panel presentations. We're going to continue now with more centers in this session. So to start, we're going to go to Jim Leahy, who is the co-principal investigator at the Knowledge Translation for Technology Transfer Center, often referred to as KT for TT, at the University of Buffalo. Welcome, Jim, and take it away.
Thanks, John. As John mentioned, my name is Jim Leahy, and my presentation today is going to be on knowledge translation media outreach strategies. From time to time over the last few years, our center has worked with the mainstream media to publicize our NIDRR-funded efforts and to showcase some of the products we have developed for people with disabilities. The first slide shows some of the media outlets we have worked with over that time. In the case of NBC and CBS, we worked with their local affiliate stations. In almost all the cases, CNN being the lone exception, we have initiated contact with the media. In dealing with the media, I've learned to use two different approaches. First approach is one for a broader national audience, with the second approach being one that is more targeted or tailored at local media coverage. But before I speak about the two different approaches, there's an important point I would like to emphasize regarding your engagement with media. Dealing with the media requires patience, persistence, and perseverance. And really, those are qualities that are needed to achieve almost anything in life. We live in an impatient world where everyone seems to seek instant gratification. Great examples of that is our social media right now, Twitter, Facebook, and the like. In connecting with media, I have learned that the first rule you always have to understand is that you need them. They don't need you. The second rule is that you must do your due diligence research and identify relevant media outlets, identify individuals working in media that you plan to target, and track individuals and outlets to ensure relevance of your material to them. It's a type of value mapping, if you will, hence the need for patience, persistence, and perseverance. Patience. Here you need to identify a media target, a USA Today editor, for example, and make a cold call into that person. Here you are either making your convincing pitch or leaving a message to make your pitch at a future point in time. If it seems the person you are calling is never in and hasn't returned your call, now what do? A little aside here. Never leave more than 2 voicemail messages. If you are calling a third time, it's best to hang up and try again later without leaving a message. But back to what do? If you feel you are being ignored, a tactic that has worked for me numerous times is to contact their administrative assistant. When the admin answers, make your convincing pitch to them. Believe it or not, in all probability, that will open the door for you. The admin assistant will give you a time when their boss, your target, is available and will make sure they take your call. Why does this work? It works because of the psychological makeup of the majority of human beings. In psychology, it's called helping behavior, altruism, or selflessness. It's a type of pro-social behavior or voluntary action where a person wants to help or benefit another individual or group of individuals. It works. There is a caveat here, though, and that is, to begin with, you had better have a good, convincing pitch. Sometimes it's going to take months to get a story in the mainstream press. Once you have a commitment from a media outlet, sometimes it will take months to just get a reporter or journalist freed up to do your story. Remember, what you are pitching in most cases isn't breaking news, which jumps to the top of media's to-do list. You may be in a queue with other stories ahead of you. Persistence. Okay, you've made your convincing pitch to your target, and the target hasn't said no, but is hesitant, or needs more time to think it over to do a little research. What do? You ask if there's any additional information that the target needs that you could provide. If yes, provide that information as soon as possible. If no, ask when you can follow up with the target at a future point in time. As either call is ending, you always ask when the next call should be. Before your call ends, line up that next callback appointment. By the way, you have to make sure you call back at the agreed upon appointed date and time. Perseverance. You may be turned down by the first media target you identified, but you keep trying until you hit the mainstream outlet who will work with you. Too often, media coverage is secondary in a grantee's mind. They will give it a shot, try it, fail, and give up. They are not approaching it as if their financial livelihood depended on it. And that's the type of commitment and perseverance that is needed to succeed. Earlier in my presentation, I mentioned two different approaches I have used. The first is targeted at a broader or nationwide audience. I've learned that you must bring the idea of a broad national audience into your convincing pitch. Your pitch has to sell that your story will appeal to a vast audience. By the way, when I use the word pitch, to me it is synonymous with the word presentation. Knowing what to say, how to say it, and when to say it. That is all about your pitch to the media. I've learned that you have to do some research and know what the target's hot buttons to hit in your pitch are. Is the editor seeking a piece that would appeal to all adults? Maybe a piece on the aging baby boomer generation or their adult children. If so, maybe you have to tie in your product or technology with other breakthrough products that serve in the same market. You have to know what is happening in the world around you and how you can tie that in with what you are pitching. By the way, again, the assumption here is that you have done your homework or research and have looked at the types of articles the editor and the publication you are targeting have been running. This will put you in tune with their hot buttons. Local media. Here you're seeking a quicker turnaround. You can hope to get the story picked up nationally, but it just may stay local. It can be press or TV coverage, sometimes more of a human interest story. Here you have to know what type of story the reporter you are contacting deals with or likes to do. You tailor your pitch to that. If the media outlet you are targeting is business-oriented, you tailor your presentation highlighting the business aspects of your product. This local story that you're developing will only be on your product, service, or organization. You don't have to worry about what is going on nationally. Here you also need to write your own press releases and tailor them to your audiences. If you want to get something in a consumer-read publication, write it as if you are addressing that audience. Consumers want to know functions and features and how this product is better for them. If your target is a business publication, write it for this audience. This audience wants to know about costs, sales, market broadening, product differentiators, among other topics. Next, I have a few examples of some of the media coverage of our products. The first slide here is on our local NBC affiliate who did both a TV piece and web or internet write-up on our center and its products. Next slide is on mainstream press and our efforts with the USA Today and Business Week. We were successful in getting articles published in both. Next slide, or the last slide on showing products, showcases a write-up we did for the Association of University Technology Managers, or Odom, and its Better World report. The write-up is on the First Crush, an automated pill crusher we invented here at our center. In all cases, we targeted a media outlet, pursued them, and our efforts resulted in successful media coverage of our products and center. Well, that brings my presentation to a close, but for those interested, there is a conference next February called the Media Insights and Engagement Conference, which highlights next-generation research and engagement strategies, helping you overcome challenges and how to decipher the future of media. The link for that conference is www.mediainsightsconference.com. With that, I'd like to thank you, and I would like to turn it back over to John Westbrook. John?
All right. Thank you very much, Jim. And maybe that link you mentioned we can put up in helpful links or somewhere.
I will.
Yes. All right. So carrying on, and we're doing fine time-wise. So people, you can take your time a little bit. We're going to now be joined by Dahlia Shaewitz, and who is Senior Research Analyst, and Cynthia Overton, who is Co-Project Director of the Model Systems Knowledge Translation Center. It's often referred to as MSKTC. That's located at the American Institutes for Research. So saying that, I'll turn it over to you, Dahlia and Cynthia.
Okay, great. Thanks, John. This is Dahlia Shaewitz, and thank you for the introduction. I lead the technical assistance activities with the Model Systems Knowledge Translation Center. I'm joined by my colleague, Cynthia Overton, who leads our dissemination efforts. Here we are, so you know what you're dealing with on the presentation. Before we begin talking about engaging the media, I'd just like to give you a bit of background about the Model Systems Knowledge Translation Center. First, our center supports the Model Systems researchers through the knowledge translation process. The Model Systems researchers focus on spinal cord injury, traumatic brain injury, and burn injury. Some of our MSKTC activities include summarizing research, identifying health information needs, and developing and disseminating resources. And I just wanted to connect to the prior presentation. While that one really focused on how to approach the media, we're going to focus more on how to respond if approached by the media. So two sides of the same coin. And for today's session, we've compiled a list of practical tips for you to consider when you're approached by members of the media. And the purpose is to get you thinking about this in advance so you're not caught off guard when someone does reach out to you. And we've created intentionally simple and explicit tips, and that's in an effort, and we suggest that you try to keep your responses and engagement as simple as possible. So tip number one, follow the rules. Many organizations have procedures about engaging with the media to help control messages. For example, an organization may allow only designated people to interact with the media, or perhaps they require staff to seek approval before they grant interviews. Many of those rules are put into place to help control messages and to ensure that an organization and information are represented in the best way possible. If you're not aware of what your organization's rules are, it would be a good idea to find that out now before you're approached by the media. Tip number two, respond to media requests quickly. Journalists often work on very short deadlines. They appreciate quick responses, even if your response is simply to decline an interview request or to say that you don't have the information they need. Your swift replies will encourage them to contact you or your organization again. If you can't respond or don't feel comfortable responding, inform a colleague who may be better positioned to speak on the topic. Tip number three, ask for specifics. When a reporter contacts you, ask for his or her name, the news organization they're calling from, and what their deadline is. Ask for a general description of the story, and ask if the reporter is pursuing a particular angle. That way you'll know why the questions are being asked. If you need to check on an answer, ask if you can just call them back or email them with the information. Make sure you give yourself enough time to be able to get the accurate information. I'm going to switch to the next slide and turn it over to Cynthia Overton.
Tip number four, stay on the record. Now, on the record means that what you say can be attributed directly to you. Off the record means that a reporter may not use the information or attribute it to you in the story, but really the safest approach is to speak on the record. It protects you from saying something you thought wouldn't be attributed to you only to find out that it is. Tip number five, stick to what you know. Talk about subjects that fit into the area of your particular expertise. If a reporter is interested in a new study you are involved with, think about 2 or 3 key ideas or facts that you want to convey. If the conversation starts or veers outside of your expertise, suggest others who can help either inside of your organization or outside of your organization. Tip number 6, speak in plain language and be brief. You're going to want to avoid jargon and acronyms and technical language. Remember that journalists produce stories to inform the general public, not other experts in your field. So you're also going to want to use language that's just simple and direct and just very brief. Long answers typically don't get used, and they often distract from the point that you want to make. If you don't want something to get lost in translation, keep your responses so simple and clear that translation isn't necessary. Tip 7, be pleasant but cautious. You'll want to be cooperative, but always keep in mind that even if the interview takes on a casual, informal tone, what you say or email may be included in the story. So you'll definitely want to keep your guard up. And tip number 8, inform your communications team. Let your communications team in your organization know when you speak to a reporter. They may want to look for media coverage and provide the reporter with additional information. So if you have any additional questions for us, Dahlia, can you put up the slide for our contact information? Please feel free to contact either Dahlia or myself. Our contact information is posted on the slide. And at this point, I'd like to turn it back over to John Westbrook.
Okay, thank you. We're running ahead of schedule, which is not the problem that I thought I would have, but I'm pleased to have it. Next up, we're going to hear from Mark Odom, who is Project Director, and Jess Chaiken, who is Media and Information Services Manager at the National Rehab Information Center, more commonly referred to as NARIC, and it is at High Tech Services Incorporated. Saying that, I'll just simply turn it over to you, Mark and Jess.
Mark, you're still muted.
Uh-oh, Mark.
Okay, thank you, John. Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Can hear you.
Excellent. I'll give a quick introduction to NARIC, and Jess will get into what our role is at the KT process. Basically, NARIC is, and some of you have heard this, has been been around since 1978. We actually opened the doors through a feasibility study sponsored by NIDRR at that time in 1976. The basic backbone for NARIC then is the same as it is now, is to collect research reports generated through NIDRR, organize them, repackage them, and help disseminate them. The main theme all along is really to enhance the usability of the information that has been sponsored through NIDRR monies, through Department of Education monies. So the theme all along, I think we've stayed in the forefront in our mind has always been, how do we make this more usable? How do we increase the access to it? How do we make it more available? So quite honestly, from the very beginning, the tenet was to stay in front of the technology and grow with the study of library science. Oddly enough, NARIC has never had a card catalog. It was started out in an electronic database in the 70s, and it actually made it easier, I think, in the long run, to stay on top of these digital innovations that we are using now in social media and whatnot. So that was kind of a quick glance of how I want to say the four mothers of NARIC, because the three people that really created NARIC were women in the library and information field. And quickly, I guess what happened, we started collecting this information right around the early 80s, and that information explosion picked up pace. You know, we had to add a toll-free 800 number. We heard Pueblo, Colorado, you could get information from everywhere. And suddenly we were a lifeline, and then kind of exploded to look at how we were going to be able to keep pace with the electronic world out there, I guess. Early on, we managed a bulletin board system even prior to the internet, and was posting a lot of the reports and information through that. We've had a web presence since, I guess, 1992 or 1993. So early on use of all of these technologies, Twitter, Facebook, Over the past few years, we've jumped into the social media pool and continually splashed about, really trying to make big waves and as many waves as possible. So Jess, I'll introduce Jess. She's been with us for, more than a dozen years, and she'll talk about getting into the nitty-gritty details on the perspective of how NARIC makes a difference. Jess?
Okay, thanks. I hope you guys can hear me, because I can't hear myself. How odd. So as Mark said, we've been around since the 70s, and we have served as NIDRR's library. And I tend to think of us as sort of in the middle of a spectrum of knowledge translation. There's a process where data becomes information, which becomes knowledge, which becomes wisdom and practice. And I think we sit solidly in between information and knowledge, and we do our best to make as much of that information available through whatever channel is appropriate. I think we're a little different than most of the KT projects in that we don't conduct and publish our own research. We are collectors. So far as I can tell, we have the only archive of NIDRR's work. It's opus, really. At last count, we had something like 30,000 items that came out of NIDRR-funded grants, or the precursors to NIDRR. We are answerers of questions. We field questions about what the NIDRR community has done, advances, statistics, interventions, and we answer those questions with what we have in our collection, as well as what the grantees make available online. And then we try to connect grantees to the public whenever it's appropriate. And we serve as flag wavers on behalf of NIDRR, promoting the work of the NIDRR community. So we're definitely in between information, making the information available, and getting it out to the point where it will become knowledge. And I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the challenges we encounter in doing that. One is coverage, and that's how do we make sure that we're getting a hold of the high quality informative material that the grantee community produces. NIDRR helps us immensely by providing some of the reporting data. The community itself provides it to us, sending us their materials. And then we spend a lot of time combing through grantee newsletters, websites, alerts, tables of contents of the major journals in the field. But we always wonder, did we get everything? And I hope we get as much of it as possible. Another challenge is outreach. How do we get all that amazing stuff out to people who can use it? We've spent the last 2 years doing some direct outreach to many different groups in the U.S. and abroad. And my colleague Marta Garcia has really spearheaded that for us. We target specific groups of fields, things like vocational rehabilitation or protection advocacy or occupational therapists, and making sure that they know who we are, who our sister project Able Data is, and about what tools are available from the NIDRR community. And another challenge is how do we measure the impact, and we're still working on that. How do we know? We can certainly look at web statistics, our follows, how much of our stuff gets shared on social media. And we try to analyze that impact and understand, are we doing any good, and what works well? And that leads me to part of what we do here at NARIC, and that is we get all of this fabulous information, but a lot of it is very complex. It's well written, but it's written at a high educational level, and like journal articles or reports, and we have to distill it down to a point where it's shareable information, it's digestible. It has enough in it to be valuable and interesting that the reader wants to read more or wants to potentially share it with their community. And that starts with our abstractors. We have a couple here, and they're really rock stars. They're taking, again, complex information and distilling it down to about 300 words. And we're getting down to the who, the what, the where. And that all goes into rehab data, our indexing database that Mark mentioned. And then it can be shortened even further for our monthly alerts, where all we do is send out kind of the first sentence of an abstract. So we're trying to pack as much information as possible into those, 12, 15, maybe 18 words. And for the last, we started the NARIC social media presence in 2008. So since 2008, we've been working on distilling that down even further to 140 characters, if possible shorter, so we make sure something gets shared on further. And then for the last 2 years, we've had this newsletter, News and Notes from the NIDRR community and beyond, which has turned into a fabulous promotional tool to spread the word about the amazing work of the NIDRR community. And again, we're taking some pretty complex ideas and getting it down into a good, interesting format. We want to engage readers and make sure that they're clicking to go on farther. And what we've done to kind of perfect that process is developing a style manual, and that's a living document. We developed it with NIDRR staff to ensure that we are promoting NIDRR appropriately and sending the right messages out. And a couple of, not last Wednesday, but Monday, one of the presenters talked about positive message versus negative message. And we do try to keep a positive spin on anything that we promote. We let the news tell itself as much as possible. And maybe that's something that we can talk about when we get to the Q&A period. Is that the best way to make sure the information is getting out there, to only spread the good news? It seems to have worked for us, and it does ensure that people are reading it and want to go on farther. And now we're getting down to distilling things to even smaller levels when using Pinterest, to the point where we want to get it down to just one bite of information, an image, some image that will be meaningful and will engage the readers and make them want to click and learn more. We want to make sure these things have legs and that they're shareable. That sort of covers the challenges that we have in taking all this information and getting it to a point where it will become knowledge. I think we're doing a good job of that for the most part. I do see the information that we put out there going even farther. I see it in other newsletters. I see it go across Twitter feeds. It's very exciting to see the work of the NIDRR community get legs and walk around. So that's it from me.
Any questions there?
We're going to probably hold the questions, Mark, until the end, and then make them more like discussions, I think. All right, so we're now moving to our last center's presentation, and we'll hear from Joanne Starks, whom we've heard from before in this conference, and she's had a very big role in planning and implementing this year's conference. So I'll just say thank you, Joanne. She is Program Associate at Seattle's KTDRR Center, and she will be telling you about some of our newer work. So over to you, Joanne.
Thank you very much. Well, if you've been keeping track of time, you will know that this is the last presentation of the day and of this conference. I'll try to be brief as I share some details about some of the resources and supports that are available through the Center on KTDRR. Some of the KTDRR's activities are focused on NIDRR-funded grantees, while others are open to anyone who's interested. As an example, this KT conference is designed to bring information to grantees, and the topic was identified through working with grantees. However, by making it available online, it is really open to anyone with a computer who would like to join us. For those who are not familiar with us, the purpose of the Center on KTDRR is to make it easier to find, understand, and use the results of research that can make a positive impact on the lives of people with disabilities. We have two primary objectives to fulfill that purpose. The first is to increase the use of high-quality disability and rehabilitation research by improving the relevance, reporting, accessibility, interpretation, and application of research results. Second is to increase the understanding and use of effective knowledge translation strategies in order to make research available for people who can use it. Our primary audience is NIDRR grantees, with additional audiences including almost everyone, people with disabilities and their families, disability advocates, service providers, and policymakers, as well as administrators, educators, and employers. In carrying out these objectives, we are working with several international partners, and links to each of these organizations are available on our website. The Campbell Collaboration, or C2, is an international organization that helps people make well-informed decisions by preparing, maintaining, and disseminating systematic reviews of research within the areas of education, crime and justice, and social welfare. KTDRR partners with C2 in a number of areas, including organizing training to help researchers understand and negotiate the C2 process for developing systematic reviews. We also work with C2's disability subgroup to increase high-quality evidence in disability and rehabilitation. Currently, we are working with C2 to share some information in a series of webcasts. The Cochrane Collaboration is the big sister to Campbell, with a focus on systematic reviews in the area of healthcare, and includes more than 30,000 people from over 100 countries. We're working specifically with the United States Cochrane Center and with Consumers United for Evidence-Based Healthcare, both at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. Next, the Canadian Institutes of Health Research, or CIHR, is the Government of Canada's health research investment agency, and it's the place where the term knowledge translation was originally coined. KTDRR is partnering with CIHR's Knowledge Translation Strategy Unit to learn about and adapt innovative KT strategies. We recently shared a 4-part webcast series featuring some of these innovations. Finally, the Evidence for Policy and Practice Information and Coordinating Center, known as the EPI-Center, is based at the University of London. We're working with the EPI-Center on how to use evidence to impact policymaking. This past year, we had a 3-part webcast series, and coming soon will be a policy conversation with EPI-Center staff and NIDRR grantees. Consumer networking is very important to KTDRR. We have a consumer review panel to help us ensure that information for consumers is responsive to their needs, accessible, and helpful on how to use evidence-based research information in decision-making. The group meets through quarterly teleconferences. As I just mentioned, we work with Consumers United for Evidence-Based Healthcare, Q. Our goals there are to enhance use of evidence-based findings and to increase the participation of people with disabilities within the Q organization. If you were here on Monday, I mentioned that John Westbrook is a co-chair of the Knowledge Translation and Implementation Coordinating Group of the Campbell Collaboration. Formerly known as the Users Group, its role has recently expanded, and we are glad to be represented by John in this important international organization. KTDRR is sponsoring several working groups and community practice in collaboration with other NIDRR grantees. The Assistive Technology Working Group is an activity that has been ongoing the past 2 years, working with Jim Leahy and the Center on KT for TT. Very soon you can view a webcast and read the white paper developed by this group called Standards for Assistive Technology Funding. What are the right criteria? We are working with NIDRR's Knowledge Translation Centers on a community of practice to help us keep informed on what's going on in KT in the NIDRR community. In an effort to keep grantees from getting multiple survey requests, the COP has been instrumental in developing a comprehensive survey on knowledge translation each year. The community of practice on evidence for disability and rehabilitation research is expanding this fall under the guidance of Dr. Marcel Dykers. Several activities such as workshops and webcasts have already taken place, and this group will help us identify and plan future activities. Coming soon will be a community of practice on practice guidelines and vocational rehabilitation, facilitated by colleagues from the American Institutes of Research. We have been developing some webcasts that focus on the use of evidence by VR professionals and the possible value of practice guidelines in this field. You may remember recent webcasts called From Research to VR Service Delivery and Motivational Interviewing that have already been aired. If you might be interested in participating or just want to know a little bit more about any of these groups, please contact us at ktdrr@cetl.org. Our training activities address knowledge creation, such as developing systematic reviews and research syntheses, using tools to extract data and assess the quality of systematic reviews, and translating evidence from systematic reviews and research syntheses into other knowledge products and tools. We also address a variety of effective KT strategies to facilitate knowledge uptake. These activities are designed to create behavior change in addition to increasing awareness and understanding of a topic or strategy. Our primary vehicles for this are webcasts and workshops, both in person and online. We've conducted over 20 webcasts during the first 2 years of KTDRR's activities on a wide variety of topics, and these are found on our YouTube channel. We have several workshops coming up in the next year. Next will be an online workshop series focusing on synthesizing evidence from qualitative research. And our KT conference for NIDRR grantees. This conference on effective media strategies is our second annual online KT conference. Last year, the focus was on KT measurement. All these training opportunities can be found on our website at www.ktdrr.org. We have a lot of other online resources that are available from our website. You can find them also by going to our ktdrr.org and selecting the Resources tab in the middle of the bar at the top of the page. From there, you can visit the directory of journals and author guidelines, which includes information about journals in the disability and rehab field. Users can browse the directory in a variety of ways. The Knowledge Translation, or KT Library, is designed to provide information about a wide range of knowledge translation and evidence-based resources. In addition to articles about KT, topics include measurement of outcomes, research quality, standards of evidence, systematic reviews, evidence grading and guidelines, and others. The KT Strategies database brings together research evidence on KT tools and strategies. It also is searchable using a variety of criteria. And as was mentioned earlier by Kathleen, this is a joint project with the Center on KT for Employment Research. The Registry of Systematic Reviews of Disability and Rehab Research gathers in one place systematic reviews of research studies on disability and rehab topics that are salient to researchers, persons with disabilities, their families, and service providers. A new resource that's currently under development is a portal of existing tools for developing systematic reviews, including software for data extraction and analysis, reference management, article selection and review, and reporting. We're working with the University of Washington Center for Technology and Disability Studies on this project. We also have some products and tools that are available for grantees and others. First is the Assessing the Quality and Applicability of Systematic Reviews document. This is a checklist and background information to help busy clinicians, administrators, and others to ask critical questions that help reveal the strengths and weaknesses of a systematic review. It's available for use at www.ktdrr.org/AQASR. We also have a webcast introducing this document and a 7-part online workshop series. We would appreciate getting your feedback about AQASR. Next is the Plain Language Summary Tool, or PLST, that was officially launched on Wednesday during this conference with a presentation from Dr. Mark Harness. This is a web-based tool to guide authors through the process of writing a plain language summary of a systematic review. It was developed in collaboration with the University of Washington Center for Technology and Disability Studies. And you can find the PLST at www.ktdrr.org/resources/PLST. Next, recently launched on September 30th, is the KT Casebook. The Casebook was developed in collaboration with grantees in the NIDRR community, and it provides real-world grantee experiences that can help plan and strengthen the quality of KT strategies. Visit the KT Casebook site at www.ktdrr.org/products/KT Casebook. You will also find a link there if you'd like to submit information about your NIDRR project for the 2015 Casebook. Next is our KT Update e-newsletter. The most recent issue was just sent out this week. If you did not receive a copy, you can subscribe by going to the website and selecting the button Subscribe to KT Update e-newsletter in the middle of the screen. Finally, social media. We're doing our best to keep up with the latest trends, and you can reach us via Facebook, Twitter, and our YouTube channel, where we share captioned videos of our webcasts and workshop sessions. And as Kathleen mentioned, we'll certainly be following up on the idea of the KT Media Facebook page. Finally, KTDRR offers specialized technical assistance services for current NIDRR grantees at no charge. These services respond to NIDRR grantees' need for general or specific information about KT and its relationship to high-quality research and KT planning. This includes both on-site and off-site technical assistance. You can send your information, your request in by using our online technical assistance request form, by calling our toll-free number, or sending email. And please feel free to reach out to us at the Center on KTDRR. Our toll-free number, 800-266-1832, and our general information email address, ktdrr@sedl.org, is available anytime that you would like to send in a request for any reason whatsoever. You don't have to just use it to request technical assistance. So that's what I wanted to share today about the KTDRR. Please feel free to get back with us and give us feedback on our resources and our tools, and ask any questions that you may have related to knowledge translation. Thank you.
Very, very good, Joanne. Thank you. I guess this is just a little plug, since Joanne mentioned the Campbell collaboration, and that's where I began my week working with those folks, that the opportunity that we have with the newly created coordinating group in knowledge translation is for us to actually use a meta-analytic process to determine what it is that works in knowledge translation and for whom and under what circumstances. We do have a little research-based information now about KT strategies. However, most of it is coming from the healthcare field. Nothing wrong with the healthcare field, except many of the applications that grantees and KT centers are pursuing are not directly healthcare environments in which you're trying to get research used. So we have actually a lot to learn about what works and under what circumstances. So I would encourage all my colleagues to think about actually taking on the doing of a systematic review around a KT strategy or a KT intervention to see what it is that the research says, so that we will then have a better universe of trying to have evidence-based knowledge translation strategies that we can help promote what it is that we think people need to know. So that would be a great contribution. And I guess, Joanne, I'll pick on you since you were the last one talking, and I know you know about this. I don't know if Kathleen is still on the phone, but we did have one question about what supports that may be out there for grantees in terms of how to talk with reporters. I'm reminded that KTER, another project that you're familiar with, had a State of the Science conference and had Donna Lockett do a particular presentation. Could you say a little bit about that?
Well, we do have some great materials, I think, that came in through this conference. We had Donna Lockett on Monday, and then we also had Sylvia Rincon that spoke with us, who's a working reporter. And Donna did give us quite a few materials and resources, I think, for making those contacts. And there's so much information out there. I think that maybe that's something that we need to do, is round up a little bit of it and maybe develop a resource that will respond to exactly what people are looking for.
That would probably be a good idea. We did have a question around outreach and outreach to people who don't speak English. Are any of the centers having special strategies that are dealing with that level of outreach, and if so, how are you doing it? And let's start with NARIC people. Jess or Mark?
Sorry, I muted myself. Marta Garcia is our bilingual information specialist, information and media specialist, and she has really spearheaded our international outreach as well as our nationwide outreach. She handles our NARIC en Español and Spanish Facebook presence, and she's very, very active in that. Handles our Spanish chat and has also translated just about almost everything on that we have produced on our website. And I think she's on here somewhere, so she can also chat in the, yep, CXC, Marta Garcia is typing, so maybe she can add any of her thoughts to what it takes to reach out to the Spanish, at least the Spanish-speaking community. That's the one area where we've focused.
Right.
And Amy knows she's not a certified translator, but she is a native speaker.
Okay, great. Certainly something we need to be concerned about as part of our outreach strategy. And non-English oriented media outlets as well are great avenues to reach those audiences. We have a question specifically from Mark Odom, which is, what background do you look for when hiring the people who write your abstracts? He's probably muted.
I probably am, thank you, sorry. I guess we started out looking at professional abstractors that did this kind of like for a living in a number of different associations. And while we got a very good product, it was really rather sanitized. It just didn't have the emotion in it that we wanted, if you understand it, or maybe the flavor might be better. And one of the things we've had now, we reached out, I guess maybe 13, 14 years ago, and we picked up an abstractor who was initially a medical coder and did a lot of, and had an English background. And she's been with us since then. We also have had a couple of people that have English backgrounds and have a child with a disability and someone else that actually had a disability. So they had that kind of flavor to them. They lived the life a little bit more and maybe understood the importance of not only what this information was saying, but how it was being used at the end of the day. And so I think someone who's immersed in the disability and the medical side of it is more important than somebody who's a professional abstractor. Is my basic strategy.
Okay. Sounds good. There was a question about what does media consider to be a quick response. I'm wondering if any of us actually know. There's been some chat in the chat box about how quick response can be expected by folks in
Mark Odom again. I've had people, reporters from the Washington Post call me, and I'll call them back in 10 minutes and leave messages and not get back. And other times where it might be, less than a day, a half a day, and they were gone with the story. So I think that it depends on the importance of that story. If it's a hot story and they're on it, they want to hear back from you within 10 or 15 minutes. Sorry, they're impatient and their egos are that big. But I don't think that the story waits around for us to answer.
Mm-hmm.
The same response. This is Jim Leahy. My response in the chat room is you have to respond immediately. In fact, if you're just even a few minutes later, calling a couple hours later, they're not going to be available for that call.
Nope.
This is Dahlia. I already said ditto, and I won't repeat what I said online, but a lot of times the reporters are given deadlines that they don't have any control over. And they might not know who you are if you don't have an established relationship. So they could easily be Googling you and going through a list of names, and they'll just keep dialing out until they get someone who gives them some information they can use. So anything you can do to be prepared in advance for those kind of calls, the better.
Okay, very, very good. I thank you all for your presentations, and according to our time, I'm going to now begin our closing comments. First, I'd like to thank everybody for participating. I know that time is short for a lot of us, and we have competing things to do, so I really appreciate everyone that presented in this three-day conference. I hope you found it to be stimulating. Hopefully it's given you some new ideas that you want to take and use. Hopefully you've also met some people that you want to keep interacting with. I want to thank all of those who made presentations because they committed a special amount of time and energy and thoughtfulness to what they were doing. The conference as a whole, as you know, has been oriented to expanding your understanding regarding how different forms and formats of what we call the media can be harnessed to a larger or smaller extent in NIDRR grant activities that are oriented towards knowledge translation. I also note here that one of our presenters today gave an open invitation for disability researchers to share results with them. And I think that we should take them up on that request. It certainly would be something that we could all do and we could make more routine, and that we should involve individuals in the media more regularly in our outreach networking activities. The KTDR staff is here to help all grantees and others through your information sharing and technical assistance activity that may be related to your KT-oriented work. So what you have to do is to get in touch with us and indicate that you would like to have a discussion about what you're doing and how you might be benefited by the KTDRR staff. Just to let you know, we will be emailing a brief evaluation to conference registrants to collect your comments and suggestions. And in just a little bit, I believe that your computer screen is going to open up and give you a chance to complete the evaluation right now if you would like to. We are really very interested in learning what it is you think about the coverage of the topic that we had for this conference and topics that you would like for us to focus on into the future. And we also note that during Wednesday's conference, participants brought up the idea of creating a Facebook group and the extent to which it might continue some level of focus on the media and strategies, examples of how outreach to the media have been successful and other kinds of experiences. So as I think Kathleen has already indicated, in the evaluation form we're asking a question which gives you an opportunity to indicate if you think that would be a good idea, and number two, if you would be willing to participate actively in such a Facebook group. So please give us some information about whether or not we should pursue that notion of contribution from the KTDRR. Also, hopefully you didn't miss any of the portions of the last three-day conference, Monday, Wednesday, and today, Friday. But if you did, an archived version is going to be made available through links you can find at the website ktdrr.org. So it's probably going to take us a week or a little bit longer to try and get the archive ready for everybody to access. So if you're interested, if it's available, just drop us an email and ask. And if not, you can visit the website to check to see if availability may be ready. So, saying that, you see the evaluation is on the screen. You may use that as your opportunity to give us some feedback now if you'd like. As we already indicated, we're going to try and see if we can post questions that we didn't get around to answering from folks with speakers, and those will be added to the expo room in the archive. So saying that, I just want to thank you very much for participating in the 2014 KT Conference on Effective Media Outreach. Our conference is now adjourned.